got it, and I think it's time. There we go. Okay, yeah, that's gonna do it. Let me go ahead and hit paste. Let's see, got the chat box. Move this one a little over here. There we go. And I'm gonna lift that just a bit. Alright, got it. Hey Vox, hey SSJ Warrior, give me just a second. I created a new stream space effectively just for tonight, so I am fixing a few things. Oops, that is the wrong thing to fix. Okay, there we go. That'll do that. We're in a different world for sure. So, let's talk about where we are. If you haven't heard the news, you likely have. Kazuki Takahashi, the creator of Yu-Gi-Oh!, along with a very accomplished mangaka career, that's being a manga artist, of course, has passed. The way that he passed is still unclear, but according to various Japanese news outlets, he was found off the coast of Okinawa after booking a private trip himself. He was traveling, he was snorkeling, he was adventuring, the way that he always does, looking for new inspiration. And so, we didn't find out, but for a rental car company effectively looking into it when Takashi-san did not pick up his vehicle as planned. And they reached out to authorities, and authorities took it seriously and looked into it. And so for that reason, well, now we know the news that we know. There's still unclear on how it happened. There's a lot of different ways that, well, you can have a snorkeling incident or anything else like that. And I would ask, especially given my own law enforcement background, that we just hold off. I'm sure they'll give us that information as soon as we can. But the purpose of tonight's stream is to have a chance to sort of decompress, right? To talk with one another about the impact that we know Yu-Gi-Oh! Has already made in our lives, and to, well, commiserate, really. Oh, I'm sorry to hear that, SSJ Warrior. And thank you, Queen. This is the first thing I put on in the morning. It just felt right. It didn't feel quite like it was, you know, time for our usual stuff, that's all. I'm doing good. I definitely had a couple of moments today, and I think I'd like to start tonight by sharing a little bit more of my story than maybe I ordinarily would. I think everybody's kind of put together what it is and why Yu-Gi-Oh! Is important to me, but just to kind of make people not feel quite as... I think the thing I keep seeing today is, you know, oh, this one hit me harder, or... you know, I feel crazy, or why is this one? And I cannot speak for your experience. I can't. I'm a separate human being, my own little, you know, meat computer powered by electrons and sugar. But I know what I'm going through. And I think if I put my words to it, then maybe you'll be able to put words to it too. And I really would love to hear what it is that you're going through. And you don't have to wait, you don't have to sit there and idly listen. You should be typing, you should be, as a human being, processing what the very Yu-Gi-Oh! Story is about, right? Loss and dealing with that. And I talk about that all the time. And those of you guys who watch me routinely, you know that. To update you, Tails, you're a Sonic fan, and so Yuji Naka probably means a lot to you, right? The creator of Sonic the Hedgehog. Well, we're having our own moment in the Yu-Gi-Oh! Community because the creator, the artist, the very mangaka that dreamt of Yu-Gi-Oh! From his own personal experiences has passed from, unfortunately, having some sort of incident on an adventure that he was going on related to snorkeling. We don't know the full details yet, but that's basically where we're at. And it's been all over the news. Not that I'm saying you should have known, but everyone is grieving in their own way. And when I say it's been on the news, I've seen pictures of members of the Judge program that I work with on NPR, on National Public Radio, on Variety, as they look for ways to meaningfully communicate what we're all going through right now. So it is one of those things. Don't feel, you know, like there's anything particularly that you missed or you should have known sooner, because, you know, a lot of stuff happened today. Actors passed. Countries are at war with one another. People are still getting sick. So there's a lot going on. So don't beat yourself up over that. And that's really why I decided we weren't we're gonna duel each other, but we were gonna do what the original Yu-Gi-Oh manga intended. And so what I'd like to do for a moment is there is a piece of Yu-Gi-Oh manga editorial that's really important. What do I mean by that? At the end of each of the volumes of Yu-Gi-Oh, there was effectively, an afterword or forenote from the author, and I'd like to, take a chance to read some of those. I'm pulling those up now, but let me, while I'm doing that, I know, it's one of those things, Queen, and that's a good thing. It's really important that we find out, and this is the big thing, the big takeaway we have today is if this hurts, you're not the only one who's hurt. And that's really important. That's a really important thing that an artist was able to achieve, because there's so many different people from different walks of life that I wouldn't have known any of you guys. And you may never have met me. I may not even be here. But we'll get into that in just a moment, because I still want to make sure that we get it from the man himself when he was confronted with what he would consider the end of Yu-Gi-Oh! So, I'm going to go ahead and put this on screen so that those of you who want to can read along. So let me go ahead and it's going to be on my desktop. Well, you'd have to be a monster to be able to be reborn, Han. I don't think an artist like that is a monster, but Shisa Solsei, right, the Ankh, Monster Reborn is its Japanese name, but the symbol of eternal life shows that sometimes death is just the beginning. And here we go. This is exactly what it was I was looking for. All right, so this is the afterword from the Yu-Gi-Oh manga, and I think it could not be understated how important it is to read that, so if you'll allow me. For 7 long years, I've traveled with Yu-Gi-Oh! I think I've been able to draw the themes I've wanted to express, but as I end the series, my main concern is whether I've transmitted my message to my readers. From the moment Yugi put the Millennium Puzzle together, the other self appeared in his heart. The time needed to explore 2 main characters turned this into a long series. In our daily life, we never get to see ourselves except by standing in front of a mirror. But even a mirror won't reflect our hearts. The main characters of this work won the courage and strength of will to face each other's hearts. As we go about our lives, we touch people we see. We see people and interact with them, and in doing so, we feel and think many things. Sometimes we make others happy, sometimes we hurt them. We empathize, we sympathize, and we disagree. In the midst of this, we learn that people's thoughts and feelings are not a one-way street. You may say something that's very basic and natural, but what I wanted to draw and write in this work was just that interaction between people, and in order to do that, I used games. The games that the characters played were not played facing monitors, but facing other people. The opponents they played were the mirrors that reflected their heart. In a basic sense, they fought each other's spirits. Because this was a manga. It was deeply colored by battle between good and evil, but I think the basis of the game was to clarify what lies between people. I think this was the reason that the Yu-Gi-Oh! Card game became so successful all over the world. In my mind, Yu-Gi-Oh! Has been completed, but throughout the world, many people are taking my work and the cards in their hands. In gratitude for that, I would like to prolong the world of Yu-Gi-Oh! For just a little while longer. I borrow the end of this book to thank all of those who have participated in this world, and thank you from the bottom of my heart. And that was how Kazuki Takahashi-san closed out Yu-Gi-Oh! How he closed what he considered probably the seminal work of his life, but it really wasn't the end of his work, as we know, right? Because that was 2004, and we're almost 20 years later from that. Take a moment just to, read some of the messages. I know I was reading ad nauseum, but I just want to make sure, because we all are experiencing losses in our different way. I'm glad to hear SSJ Warrior that you binge watched some of that stuff for sure. I'm absolutely thrilled to see so many people touched by Yu-Gi-Oh! For sure, because I know how it touched my life. Again, it's one of those things where you never really know. And Maddie, this is one of those tea setting gun moments. Always good to have you back as always. It's one of those things where, different people have had so many different experiences in their life, and we only live well, on this earth, regardless of, what you think about it, for a set period of time. And we start that journey and we end that journey from completely different points. And why do we have art? In my opinion, there's no one right reason, right? I didn't invent art, and I probably won't be the last artist. I really think that art, at least for the reason that I engage in artistic endeavors, is twofold. One, it's to make a meaningful impact on other human beings, right? I put that art out there, but I don't know who's really going to see it and where they're at. Namaste, Sean, I appreciate that. But it is to make a meaningful impact on the lives of others. And every artist, to a certain degree, does that. The other reason that we make art, or at least I make art, is to express what's going on inside. And I've been an artist for a long time, and I've seen a lot of pain. And I've returned to art, and sometimes I didn't know what to do, and sometimes I did know what to do, and a lot of great things. Anytime, Sunrise, anytime. I want to talk a little bit about my own Yu-Gi-Oh experiences, but not just the general pheromone story that, for those of you who've been here forever, but some of the ways in which Yu-Gi-Oh saved me, and to a degree in which I saw Yu-Gi-Oh save others. And you can share your story, and I'll try to take some breaths in between so that, we can meaningfully hear yours as well, for those who may not, be following the channel on the side there, just to give us some sort of stuff like that. And for that, I'm absolutely, it's just one of those things. Same deal, Josh, transform passions and stuff. I want to talk about where I was at in the year that Yu-Gi-Oh came out, for real. Yu-Gi-Oh was released in 1996 in Japan as a manga. Serial comic. You got a little bit of the story every month that you dipped into your Shonen Jump comics. But when I found Yu-Gi-Oh, despite already being into a bunch of anime, both, stuff that we had and stuff we didn't have, it wasn't a great time. I'm from New York City, and Yu-Gi-Oh premiered in September of 2001. And I'm not trying to bring those bad memories up, but that was rough, making sure that people I knew were okay and calling up, family members that aren't with me anymore. This might be an emotional stream, and I will do my best to be on it, but this is the truth. Sometimes the truth hurts. And so, when I found Yu-Gi-Oh, I was absolutely enamored with it. And I wear headphones a lot. You guys see me wear headphones. I love big headphones, and the reason I love big headphones is actually kind of painful. There's a lot of things about me that are things that I'm very proud of and joyous about that actually come from really painful circumstances, because I had a rough life. I had maybe a rougher life than I ever let on. But Yu-Gi-Oh found me at a time where I really could use a break, and you probably needed a break too. And I remember watching on Kids WB with big old headphones in front of a 27-inch TV, which seemed gigantic at the time, watching Yu-Gi-Oh alone. And I thought to myself how much I was in love with that first episode. And I know I've said this before. Thank goodness I was wrong. I didn't think anyone was gonna like it. I said, oh my goodness, this series is amazing. It's so life-changing. No one's gonna like it. They're gonna cancel it. Oh well. But I still tuned in every single week. And I want to take a pause there just to make sure that we're making sure that we hear from other people too. And awesome life lessons from Josh and BKB Dragon. I'm glad to see you today, especially on all days. And Queen, I'm glad that you found Yu-Gi-Oh from watching the anime, because that is how I found it too, for sure. It wasn't the manga that I started on. I started with the anime, because that's how, for the most part, we got it. It was a licensed series by Kids WB for sure. Oh, and hey, it's good to see you. Thank you. This is just what I wore to work today. But what I mean by Yu-Gi-Oh finding me in specific circumstances, I've seen a lot on Twitter today, people saying I'm crazy, or, why do I feel this way, or I never met this person, because it's just a human being. I hate to say this, but to a degree, most of you guys have never met me. But despite the fact that you've never met me, you might trust me. You might You might have a good day when I'm around. You might smile, or you might know me, right? And I do believe that people have that relationship with artists all the time. And we have patterns for that. We know that that is real because Kazuki Takahashi is an artist who impacted the lives of millions, but he is not the first artist to do so. In the last decade, we've lost many artists like that. And I think a good paradigm I could think of is Stan Lee, or decades before him, Walt Disney. There are people who may not even think about Kazuki Takahashi or Stan Lee or any of those other people that I mentioned, but their work successfully impact the lives of other humans. They wrote a story, and you just kind of push that out into the ether, and you know somebody's going to read it, and you might have talked to somebody who's seen your work, but the real success of any artist, when you almost achieve escape velocity, when your work goes to places where you're not in control of it anymore, where people make fan fiction or cosplay, right? This guy. People are impacted because of a butterfly effect, right? You put it out there, you hope it does well, and we know it did well here. But yeah, no, there's no one right way to do it. If you want to raise a card in his honor, if you want to have a moment, if you want to create something, if you don't want to do anything at all of these are valid because it's part of the human experience. And, well, we're going to weave some of my story back in there. I left New York around the time that Yu-Gi-Oh! Came out. I visited back and forth, over the summers to visit the family that I still had there at the time. But a big portion of why I permanently cut ties with the state of New York, not the state of New York, right, but just, I left New York, is because of my rough childhood and because of my rough childhood following me beyond childhood. And members of my family came with me, and we came to Texas, and we came to Texas to be safe. As you've learned from Yu-Gi-Oh!, your problems sometimes have a way of rhyming with reality or echoing, etc. And so the rough family life that I had effectively followed me to Texas. But something was different about before and after that. And this is another thing you're going to find in people who have a background similar to me, is it's sometimes hard to find positive role models, and so you do turn to works of art or to people you don't know as a beacon in those dark times. And one of the greatest movies that I would recommend if you want to see that removed from everything, it's a very heavy movie, warning on that. It's called Life is Beautiful, and it is about one of the darkest human tragedies, and I don't want to mince words here, so it is about, it's a fictionalized version of surviving the Holocaust, but doing what you can to interact with other human beings in order to make your dark times something that you can survive. And survival is something that we know quite a bit about. And I don't mean to invoke that movie, Life is Beautiful, and try to tie it in this way, but for the fact that works of art like that, and similar to Yu-Gi-Oh!, and specifically Yu-Gi-Oh!, as you can tell, is what kept me around. And you've heard my mission statement a million times before, because I say it all the time on the stream, that my goal in being Pheromone is to be the Pheromone that I didn't have. And so when I was in Texas and those elements of my life followed me and followed my family, and we didn't feel safe, and we didn't want, to be abused by member of my family. The difference was that line in the sand that gave me the ability to stand up for my family and work within the system to make sure that it never happened to us again. It was Yu-Gi-Oh! It really was. And that is because this is a series about right and wrong and justice and overcompensating for justice and getting it wrong, right? The Seal of Orichalcos, the literal Fang of Critias theme that we're hearing right now. It is a show about being human. It is a series about being human, and my experiences that I got by being part of the Yu-Gi-Oh! Community and then coming back to the problems that were unique to me, at least I hope they were unique to me. I know there's a lot of other people that they haven't had a blessed life. They found confidence in something. And for me, that confidence and that sense of justice was the King of Games. Take a moment for myself just to have a moment with you guys. But scrolling up, catching up with everybody. I'm sure, Akari, I'm sure wherever they are, I've seen some wonderful fan art of people having Takashi-san walk through that door for sure. Yes, absolutely, America, the Deutsche. Robin Williams, Stan Lee, Kazuki Takahashi, they all have wonderful things in common of using pain to inform art and so on and so forth. We'll talk a little bit about Kazuki Takahashi's painful experiences as well, because I think it does inform a lot of the art and why everything works. And thank you, Josh. I put that together to try to put visually, sometimes visuals work better than words. As we know in Yu-Gi-Oh, we joke that we do not read, but it's because we speak a pictographic language. By Hold Up Monster Born, you almost can repeat to me, each of you, what it does to differing degrees of what it is that card means to you as well. But yeah, no, Akari, I'm doing well. I'm glad that you checked in with us for sure. I'm so happy, and I know that's a weird word to say in a day like this, but I'm happy to see that people were just really expressive about how it was that Yu-Gi-Oh touched their life, because I think people, at least some people I've met, some human beings, they want to conceal what they would consider weakness, but I consider it to be the strength of humankind. That draw a monster card, I hear. That being human is not a weakness, and if you explore those feelings that you have, you will be better equipped to help others who are experiencing that, who may not have been through the journey that you have, that your unique insight can lend them. And I've always lived really by that philosophy, for real. And it's just one of those things. Yes, Gengar, if you haven't been informed, there's a lot of things, and we all have different ways of expressing pain, and some people do not want to directly express pain, or do not want to be caught directly expressing pain, and that's just cultural sometimes, or sometimes it's how you were raised, or sometimes it's the position you're in and how you want others to see you. So today I cry, and I'm okay with that, and I don't feel that weakens me in any way. I think that it's the right thing to do, effectively. Want to weave a little bit more of my story in. Very young little Yugi. I'm gonna pull up an image that I pull up from time to time, sometimes in jest, sometimes just in general. Let me see if I already have this one saved to my desktop. It is an image of me at my inception, at my beginning. And here he is. This is Pheromone 1.0. And this is just some kid from New York trying his best to express his love and his compass and his sense of art. And there we go, Pheromone. Now you could be formally anointed as Pheromone. It was my own natural hair. I had been playing the card game for a little bit, and I had found friends through Yu-Gi-Oh, and that was so absolutely important. Speaking of which, I see that some of your stories are coming in, so I want to take the time there. Triforce, middle school, around 5th grade, your parents told you to disregard buying cards. You told them about the past. Oh, I see. And Gengar, that's okay too. And how you decide to interact with humanity, that might be a little too on it. Hold on, I gotta back up real fast here. Great song, but maybe not the right version of it for us. I'm gonna go back a step here. There we go. So it's one of those things where, Gengar, all of us can interact with the world differently. We are not born unto an island by ourselves. Somebody is there. And that somebody is different, whether it is someone you're related to by blood or not, or if it's a gathering of people whose ideology you agree with. There's different ways. And so there's no one right way to express yourself. There's just not. And so, this kid, we'll talk a little bit about this kid. This kid, when I went to my very first anime convention, this is a photo from my second. When I went to my first anime convention, I went with friends that I had made through Yu-Gi-Oh, just, from meeting people here in Texas. And, we didn't have any money, I was a broke kid at the time. And we went to an anime convention, and I was dressed, and I know I've got it somewhere, but I have to find it. I have an old Polaroid. No, it's a Kodak photo. It's a Kodak photo. And, you know, we showed up and decided we like it. We decided to stay there overnight, and we didn't have a hotel room. And, you know, I just helped the group out because, and I have this in the other video, I sold Yu-Gi-Oh cards in the game room so that we could just like get pizza and just get through. And I sort of carried us through that. And it's one of those things where I would not be there in that place feeling safe and loved and away from the things that not only haunted me, but were still very actively painful in my life without that outlet, without Yu-Gi-Oh! And I figured out, not everything, but this idea 20 years ago about that this is the seat that I wanted to be sitting in, that I wanted to be the pheromone that other people didn't have. Because when you think about Yu-Gi-Oh! Yu-Gi-Oh! Is about all of us, right? Remember when we solved the Millennium Puzzle so long ago? And I cried then too, so I'm a crier, my bad. You know, the only thing I wanted was friends. And Yu-Gi-Oh! Gives so many different people a love language that they didn't otherwise have. Because, and I'll use this as an example, because I almost learned this through Yu-Gi-Oh! That you can be friends with perfect strangers almost instantaneously once you find common ground or camaraderie, and there's always something to have common ground with. We're human. And how we express that to one another can be painful, and we can fight, and we can cope and whatnot, but this has always been a symbol, as you can see, of not being lonely, because the real Millennium Puzzle, and I don't mean this to be corny, because it's going to sound corny, because anything you say that someone has said before sounds cliche, because we have been taught we need new ideas, but I sincerely mean this. The real Millennium Puzzle is the friends we made along the way. And why I say that is because before each of us found this thing that we are passionate about to differing degrees, we had to figure out how to interact with others and what we were going to say them and how we wanted to present ourselves and how we wanted to express ourselves. And that is sincerely why I say all the time, we'll open up the duel room, for instance, right? And people, you know, they'll be waiting, and I will remind people that it is so important to play people you have never met. And I don't just mean playing card games, right? I mean sincerely engaging across the board in new experiences. Eating foods you've never eaten, meeting people you've never met, going places you've never gone. And there's nothing wrong with comfort food. You should eat the things you like because you know you like them. That's part of the journey, to find new things that you love. But I know firsthand how something that you don't know can save you. I do. And to effectively preach that, to let other people know effectively the gospel that you really should try new things. You really should explore spaces you haven't been. I know because it saved me. Because I'm here. So I mean it. But again, this is a very long tale, and so I want to make sure again that we're interweaving it with all of your experiences, and we'll probably go on for about another hour and a half or so you don't have to feel rushed, and we're just kind of doing it, right? So, turning back to that very exact point, I know I'm looking this way, or excuse me, this way, but I'm actually looking at the chat while I'm looking. I'll redirect my eye line by pulling over the chat right over here. So, again, you know, your parents were cool with you, they didn't mind playing, the cosplay, making all the friends vibe. I'm really happy to hear that. I'm glad, you know, Cross Duel's been really good. Is it the beta Gengar, or was it fully released to where you could just download it? Because I'm curious to know that for all of our other Canadian duelist friends. I'm glad, you know, Aichi, you know, your experience started back when you were around 5 with your dad and your older sister, and you'd rush down in the basement every weekend to watch the show, and your dad would buy you cards, you'd play together in the series shaped who you were today, and you wouldn't have all the friends. That's absolutely true, too. If you weren't aware, Card Fight Vanguard, right, Aichi, Card Fight Vanguard is made by somebody who worked with Kazuki Takahashi personally in Yu-Gi-Oh! Projects, and went off to do his own thing with guidance and support from Takahashi-san. So when I say that it's okay to play other card games, I don't get that from nowhere. I get that from, well, the king of games himself, right? And so, oh yeah, Infamous, Anytime, and SSJ, you know, turn over to yours. My Yu-Gi-Oh experience started when I was, you know, 5 or 6, give or take, and you saw Yu-Gi-Oh GX, and you thought it was the coolest thing ever. And when you got older, you started playing the card game, around 8 or 9. Okay, very cool. And was happy, and your first deck was, oh, Joey's deck, and like all the monsters. No one can win with these, right? That's the old adage. Trying to look at different cards, and that's why you make all these decks. SSJ, where I know you sincerely take that message to heart, because all the different decks and all the things you do, it really is, well, it's very much in line with my worldview for sure, of just trying new things, because you don't know. Maybe Exod is your favorite monster, and you're going to be the Exod guy, but you don't know until you try. Isovan, your first experience being the Yu-Gi-Oh! Duel Monsters dev in Forbidden Memories, great game for sure. Soft released in Canada, very neat, Gengar. Looking forward to, it's a great game, as you know, and well, I know I'll be looking for a tip or two from you once we get back to normal, and we get cross duel. I remember when I went back to New York, and things were on the path to being better, for sure. I remember teaching my grandfather how to play Yu-Gi-Oh! And I've said this story a million times too, but my grandfather, I very much had a relationship with him the way Yugi does with his grandfather, and I think that's another reason why I love the show so much. And all the good things in my life really did come from my grandpa Mudo. They did, because outside of my maternal grandfather's side of the family, there were not very many good influences in my life. There were active things that just weren't good. And that sense of Yu-Gi-Oh! Justice, for real, for justice in all these different situations, no matter what it was, for somebody cheating you in a game, all the way to, you know, actions against people who would steal and violence and intimidate others. That sense of justice is what made me want to be a prosecutor. And so, you know, when I went to college, which started in 2005, and I went and, you know, went on to graduate and finish my education down here in Texas, which I am thankful for. I did become an attorney, and I did become a prosecutor, and I did want to do the right thing, but also under the lens of not forgetting the lesson of the Seal of Orichalcos. And what I mean by that is, you know, Yu-Gi-Oh! is all of the story, and it is a cautionary tale about never losing sight of the mission and treating even those who are on the opposite side of you with dignity and respect. And in every interaction I had with defendants, whether they were representing themselves or whether they were represented by an attorney, not only was I upholding, you know, my oath to the state of Texas and the United States to uphold the laws of the state of Texas and the United States, but I wanted to make sure that I was treating people with the sort of care and dignity and respect that I thought the King of Games would. And there's a lot of dimensions to that, and it was some of the most meaningful stuff that I do, but no less meaningful than all of the just treating human beings with dignity I did at every stage of the way that I did in Yu-Gi-Oh! Flashback a little bit to my grandfather, though. I taught him Yu-Gi-Oh! How old was Grandpa? He was old. And he learned it. And I remember I shuffled to play my very first game with my grandfather, and he was appalled at shuffling, right? You know, Yu-Gi-Oh! Cards are in no short supply in this room, because, you know, we taught him monsters and levels and attributes, and Yu-Gi-Oh! Was very in its early years, so there wasn't complicated stuff. You know, I wasn't trying to teach my grandfather how to get a one-card starter into a full FTK going blind second. But I remember shuffling for the first time, and grandfather, you know, at the apartment in Upper East Side, Manhattan, said, "Wait a second, I did not learn the rules of this game and the effects of these cards for you to tell me that I cannot play these cards in the order that I want." And so he put the deck down, and he walked away, and we never played a game of Yu-Gi-Oh! He was very supportive of my Yu-Gi-Oh! Career and all of my endeavors in general. And I remember the next year showing him a magazine. Do I have a copy of that? The physical copy? I don't know that I do, but I know that I've scanned it. I showed him a copy of a magazine that I was in, which back then, in the infancy of the internet, if you think about that in the early 2000s, when we were on MySpace, that was a big deal. That was a big deal. And so he understood, before he ultimately passed in 2005, the changes in me that were part of this. And so for there to be a story so much about preparing for loss and to be raised by a man who instilled in me the values of, I may not be of this earth all the time. I don't want to say it equipped me, because how can you really be equipped for loss, right? But it gave me meaningful tools to be able to be here in this space now, but also in the spaces that we've been before. And so yeah, so if I'm a little emotional when it comes to Yu-Gi-Oh, there's a reason. Catching back up on memories for sure. You're right, Aichi, you know, Kazuki Takahashi-san and Aito Akira-san's, you know, bond, it is so great because it does show you in this world of competition and no, this is the one true card game and no, that is the one true card game, that the truth of the matter is that you can do a lot of different things with your life for sure. And so that's really the mission I took up. So I know, that's my grandpa. That's Grandpa Mudo. So, and that is true. So what my grandfather did not get to see, is my continued, you know, blessings in this sphere. And when Konami took the program over in 2009, I thought of it as a meaningful opportunity to be involved in organized play and to serve the company directly, that was doing its best to honor the license and the wishes of the creator that it, you know, rented Yu-Gi-Oh out from. And yeah, no, you're right. You're right. There are so many things, Iceban, that I've gotten to do that I would not be doing but for Yu-Gi-Oh. There are places that I will go this very month. Next week. You know, every one of the piece of memorabilia behind me represents different memories from throughout the card game, whether they're very recent or very old. But I want to show you something that you may not know, because I think just as we've been using this experience to kind of learn more about each other, I think it's really important for you guys to understand we're not that different. And so I'm scrolling through here because I want to find a very specific video of Takashi-san's workspace after he retired from Yu-Gi-Oh! And so just about got it. Shou machimasu kudasai. Where is... I found it. I did find it. Okay. So, what you should know... Oh, did I just lose it? Well, not firing on all cylinders today, but we're trying. Kazuki Takahashi-san was a fan of Yu-Gi-Oh! And that sounds, you know, of course everybody should be their own fan, but he sincerely liked everyone's contributions, meaningful contributions to what he originally created. And so I know there are a lot of fans out there who may not want to try some of the things that are beyond that original series, but it is really important to know that Takashi-san continued to be a meaningful influence in that. And here we go. I got exactly what I was looking for. Here's what we're going to show. This is from a very old interview video where they were showing off his office space. And so I'm going to pop this up and you guys can see it, and I'll just kind of keep narrating here in the background. And so, if you look at his office space, it includes figures that were never released in Japan. It includes memorabilia. Those are Yu-Gi-Oh! Rollerblades. That is a Mattel Duel Disk made in America. Those are Yu-Gi-Oh! Safety helmets for your rollerblading adventures. Those are so many different products. There are Yu-Gi-Oh! Action figures in there. In fact, I think the thing upon reviewing this that really surprised me the most, not only just the American figures and how big a fan of he was of the entirety of the series and where it went, but, you know, all the signatures, all the autographs, all the meaningful messages he had from different members of the crew, Yu-Gi-Oh! Zexal merchandise, Yu-Gi-Oh! 5D's merchandise, Yu-Gi-Oh! GX merchandise. So please, please remember, Yu-Gi-Oh's creator loved Yu-Gi-Oh! Not one Yu-Gi-Oh! Not some Yu-Gi-Oh! Not just his Yu-Gi-Oh! But your Yu-Gi-Oh! Your meaningful contributions to this fandom. And this was the thing that really surprised me. The video games. He was sent master copies. Games that he had sometimes no impact in the development of. He also had, and this is where I'm going to pause this, he also had this trophy. This trophy above me. If you don't know what this trophy is, it is... Hey, here, I'm gonna get up because I forget that I have wireless headphones now. This trophy is literally the Millennium Puzzle that I wore around my neck. And I'm gonna be careful with this. I'm gonna pull this down. So you can see, now mine has been through a lot, because when I got my puzzle, I had to make a sincere decision. Was I going to leave it in here, or was I going to put this thing on, make a Yu-Gi-Oh! Costume, and try to make new friends? And this is a trophy from Organized Play that I got. Wow, I guess it was, when did we do the Upper Deck Seasons? The Best in Shop. You had to be basically just win all the points and whatnot. And this thing's actually been through a lot. This is gonna make you guys, some of you guys might be sad. I remember in 2005, I wore this to a tournament. See that right there? That's Imperfections. And this thing's been painted a number of times, and it's actually about 2 or 3 pounds, and I've been injured by it. And what happened is I got out of the car in a Honda Civic hatchback, which, as you know, is a car that is very low to the ground. And it came out and bopped. Oops. Let me grab this book. This would be a bad day to have to drop this, right? It popped out, and I got a little chip. It came and it hit the side of the car. But I didn't even so much as flinch, because it was my Millennium Puzzle. I wasn't going to do anything with it other than wear it around my neck and try to help other people connect with their fandom. And I've just always sincerely lived by that, and I know that sounds silly at times, right? There's a lot of things going on in the world, but I've always just tried to use it for good. But, oh yeah, he did have the Exodia on the wall. Yeah, such a unique, it's a unique piece of history, so I've got mine, and I'm so glad that he had his. Because it is a solemn reminder that he was a fan of the series, and sometimes things become bigger than yourself. Think about Stan Lee. He's gone on record all the time just saying that he loves all his creations and all the permutations and how excited he is to see change in that. So if you're inspired to make an original character or video or a piece of art or something that you think changes it and you're worried, don't be. That artistic expression is not only a meaningful part of who you are, but it could be a meaningful part of who somebody else is. So that's the thing. That's the moral of that particular story. He liked Yu-Gi-Oh! And you should too. Catching up on messages. Let's see. I am glad that was the mission, SSJ Warrior, for sure. It might have been Kid Blunder. I might have missed that if that was a Yu-Gi-Oh! Fishing rod. The Orichalcos Dual Disc, which, by the way, that Orichalcos Dual Disc, remember, that was not a story that was written by him. That was something that the animation team did to give him more time. In anime, sometimes we call it a filler arc, but the intended purpose was to give him more time to finish his Yu-Gi-Oh! Manga so that could be developed into an anime. So, a lot of things that you can catch from that. Gorochu, I do not know, but I would imagine that he has a will, and in that will, it will likely go to people that he cares about. I know I've got a will to take care of the same thing. It depends, though. Some people, and in some cultures, leave portions of their items to organizations, nonprofits, etc., and have their physical objects liquidated so that that proceed, the money basically that they made off the sale, can go towards that charity. And Kazuki Takahashi was a notable advocate for voting. He was a notable advocate against war. He was sometimes even got in trouble for his advocacy and the intersection in which it had with Yu-Gi-Oh! There is an image in which he basically used Yu-Gi-Oh! Characters, his art and his Instagram, in order to say that you should get out and vote and maybe not support a certain political candidate. And he was human just like us, and it's so important to remember that, because you're human. You have your opinions, you have your ideas, and however you want to express them, however you do that, as long as you're not having a hurtful impact on others, right? You don't want to be like that. But your art's important. It really, really is. But catching back up again, it is a unique piece of history for sure. Oh, wow. Okay. Yeah, Lyra Loose Nightingale. That's everybody's got that favorite card, or maybe they have multiple favorite cards, but I'm glad to know you know. And hey, B, we've been crying on and off all afternoon ourselves. Don't worry, you're not. The best way that I've said it all day is there is nothing unique or special about me. And you might say, hey, Pheromone, you're not a bad guy, but this is what I mean when I say that. I am human, and today, the only joy that we can take away from today, beyond all the other things, because there's a lot of good things that happen. Somebody got a job promotion today, right? Somebody had their first kid today. There's a lot of good in the world that happened today. But from this particular thing, we learned how not alone we are, right? And everybody expresses it in different ways, and some people, leave us and come back eventually, and some people leave us and they don't come back. But the stories they leave us with, the morals of those stories they leave us with, that's what remains, and that's the legacy they leave. And so that's the joy of today, is that we're not alone. You're not alone. And if you cried and you don't feel as good as maybe you would have if it were any other day, that's okay. That's being human. So that's what I mean when there's nothing unique about me. I'm sad too, B, but there's nothing unique about that. I'm not the first person to be sad. I'd hope I was the last person to be sad, but we're humans, and it's part of the program, right? But that can be a good thing, because in that empathy, in the ability to see that other people are hurting, not only do we understand the validity of our own feelings, but knowing what other people are going through, we might be able to help them with a perspective that is uniquely ours that they don't have. Keep that in mind. Oh, good, SSJ Warrior, and absolutely. So yeah, I've gotten to do so much thanks to Yu-Gi-Oh, and I will never stop being thankful for that. And I always think through the lens, and I've said this before, and it's something I always remind myself every day, is to play the music. Oh, there we go. It's all epic again. I gotta put this on repeat. My bad. Okay. We'll end on that. I'm not throwing any shade on one of the greatest songs in Yu-Gi-Oh history, but it's just the vibe. There's the vibe. But it really is that my moral, the thing I think about, my compass, is to think about what that kid would have thought about the ultimate Yu-Gi-Oh journey that I arrived at now, and how excited he would have been to find out any facet of the things I've been lucky enough to do based on my continued work in this field. And I tell the same thing really to other people too, respective to their story all the time. And as part of the Dragon Duel program, which is for duelists who are of a younger age, and many of the age that, people were when they found Yu-Gi-Oh, is to remind parents specifically of all the wonderful skills that you get from this card game. And I have sincerely said this, and parents will tell you, they'll be like, oh, that's Judge Pheromone over there. And yeah, I turned my mind around this, and I may not reach everybody, but this is what I wanted to communicate to those parents, and I've always tried to effectively do it. The things you learn from Yu-Gi-Oh, especially in organized play, or just dueling in general, are so important beyond reading comprehension and mathematics for kids of a young age. You also learn the value of practice, of preparing for something, of hard work. You learn what it feels like to lose for the first time. You learn how to appeal to a neutral third party, right? The Yu-Gi-Oh! Judge program, in order to make sure that your voice and your rights are heard and respected, or your quest for knowledge to make sure that everything's on the up and up is satiated and respected as well. And the Dragon Duelists are no worse just because they're young. I've seen really tremendous intellect represent our game, not only in the Dragon Duel program, but before the Dragon Duel program, where we did not have a specialized bracket for kids of a certain age. Austin Coleman was 10 years old when he won the Yu-Gi-Oh! National Championship. And so there is nothing you cannot do. Of course, you must apply yourself, and I always say if you're going to write that check, you have to cash the check, right? You could say, I want to do this. And I've heard your aspirations and your dreams over the course of our streams together. I did the math, by the way, and I have streamed 95 days of Yu-Gi-Oh! Irrespective of my work as a Yu-Gi-Oh! Judge and all the cosplay stuff. I have cosplay pictures that are on the wall. I have streamed 95 times 24 on this channel alone. 95 times 24, 2,280 hours. There is approximately 7 days worth of content on my Yu-Gi-Oh! Channel, on my YouTube channel, excuse me, and that would be 7 times 24 would be... Is that all it is? Is only 168 hours? There's only 168 hours on my YouTube channel. There is so much time that I know I have spent specifically trying to impart this philosophy, effectively. The good things you can take out of this. And it's not unique to Yu-Gi-Oh! You can learn all of these lessons through whatever it is that makes you passionate. And all of those kids who were talented Dragon Duelists also would have been talented at whatever they chose to do, whether it was something intellectual like debate team or chess club, strategy games, right? Or physical, right? Or art or anything like that. What they all shared in common is they were working as hard as they could, as all humans try to cash that check. And so they set out and they had a goal and they didn't meet it. And that is an important lesson to learn, because it's not always going to be your moment. And those were the things that I learned from Yu-Gi-Oh! Too. You know, there's so many arcs. Oh, absolutely. I'm gonna take a little moment here. B, I'm really glad to find out that you are finding how not alone you are, for sure. I really am glad. I'm so happy to hear that as well. Aichi, Little Creepo and I, you know, we send messages to each other every now and again, and sincerely, the work that everyone does, regardless of what you think about it, and I've also heard this too, it's all Yu-Gi-Oh! It's all Yu-Gi-Oh! Comedy is art, poetry is art, written word is art. And I also see, you know, people who we'll call them content creators now, who are hard on themselves because they're not constantly, you know, producing news content or uploading or don't have 1 million followers or whatever. But every single piece of art is meaningful. Think about it. If you look at the number of people in this room and you think about a room full of people all expressing the same feeling, we're connected regardless of where we are, and that is the lesson that you learn in the, oh, that's not the right, I got 2 different manga volumes, I gotta pull that up, but that is the lesson you learn from the Circle of Friendship, effectively, right? And if you really think about the core cast of Yu-Gi-Oh! Characters, and I said I was gonna come back to Kazuki Takahashi's, some of his not great stories, and I don't mean the great stories that he wrote, I mean some of the personal things that happened to him, to tie in why we are very much the same, for sure. Oh, Anti, I understand, and that's okay. That's one of those things, but it's never too late to be part of the Dragon Duel experience, whether you're the parent of a child or you know a young duelist that you'd like to coach to be better at the Dragon Duel Championships. We're having them next week in Chicago, and there are last chance qualifiers for that, but there's also other ways too, like signing up for the judge program. I want to see, I think it's in, let me see if I can find this. I want to make sure I get this exact one. Let me see, yes. I want to see if I can find it. Okay, I got it. I'm going to source it. So, I want to talk about the inspiration behind Seto Kaiba. So, where is... found it. Perfect. Okay, I just want to make sure we're sourcing it properly. So, here we go here. And this is really, really important. Alright, so... I guess that's a little too big, but... A friend of mine told me a story once. This is from Kazuki Takahashi-san. The other day I met this guy who plays collectible card games. I asked him to teach me how to play, and he said, come back to me when you've collected 10,000 cards. I couldn't believe it. That story made me mad. But I thought the card collector would make a good character, and that's how Seto Kaiba was born. Everybody be nice when you play cards. And Seto Kaiba is effectively Kazuki Takahashi trying to illustrate how the actions of a person can hurt someone. And regardless of whether they care if they hurt someone or whether they know if they hurt someone, if you analyze Seto Kaiba's character, it shows there are different ways to make a lasting impact on humanity for good while not necessarily finding ways to meaningfully interact with others. And so that's a really important part about Yu-Gi-Oh! It's not just about the good times. And that is why I think is a story that really resonates with people, is that it's about the bad times too. You know, it's about loss, and it's about mistakes, and it's about, you know, why did I do this? I could have done anything different. I got caught up in it. I chose to do this. Now other people are suffering. Excuse me, I was burped. But that's that lesson of the Seal of Orichalcos that I'm always trying to impart, for sure. That it's just... don't go too ham, right? Don't do too much. Going through, let me make sure I'm catching up here. Yes, okay. We're on track. Alright, so other stuff that, yes, absolutely, Helen. It's good to see you again, for sure. It is one of those things where I think that is what makes it resonate in a meaningful story, and the style in which it was wrapped was so fascinating and interesting, and it was art based on Western culture, because if you go on to study Takahashi-san, he's a huge fan of Western properties like Hellboy and Aliens, and if you look at the Blue Eyes White Dragon and its permutations, especially when Takahashi-san draws it, you might see some parallels in the style. And so that might be the lesson that I think is most important in an already trying time, right? Today already had a lot of things that were tragic about it, and yesterday did too, and tomorrow may as well. And I don't say that to depress anyone. What I mean to say is that the stuff that's out there in the world can inspire you to do really meaningful things, and as a result of such, as an artist, incorporating that into your art is important. And so telling stories about pain and loss, or consuming stories about pain and loss, are important because they cause you to reflect, right? It's not just passive content, or we wouldn't have art. Nobody was getting clicks and views 4,000 years ago, and yet we had art. You know, nobody was getting clicks and views 20 years ago, and yet we had art. You know, people want to connect with humans because being a human is such a weird experience, right? You guys are humans. I think I am. It's weird, and it might continue to be weird, and we do our best to try to explain it for sure. It was Weeb Thrash, it was. And hey, there's a lot of parallels in Hellboy 2 about coming from different roots and trying to make the best of your circumstances and trying not to be the bad person you feel that you were destined to be, and trying to be the good person that others see that you could be. There's a lot in there, isn't there? Oh, absolutely, Four Leaf. You can tell that there was just something special about it. The reason I get into the art style a little bit, some people don't like some of the later series, and that's okay. There's no reason not to. Express your opinion, because of course your own opinion is valid. But it's really important to remember that the designs, we just talked about how Takahashi-san was such a big fan of Yu-Gi-Oh, right? You saw signed autographs from series he did not create, and you saw duel discs from duelists he didn't create. One of the really important things that I think is worth covering is that he did design a lot of those early character designs and was consulted throughout Yu-Gi-Oh's history. And I think just a really quick way to show that is to take some of the wildest designs from Yu-Gi-Oh! GX. I mean this when I say this, I'm about to pull up the wildest designs of Yu-Gi-Oh! GX IMHO. Let me see if I can find that. Where are you, wildest designs of GX? Oh, I might have to look for that one. His signature is on those character designs. And so, let me go concept art. See if I can find, I'm looking for a very specific piece of art. There we go. Is this what I was looking for? Oh, maybe it isn't. More on that as that develops, but I'm sure to post that later. Oh wait, here it is. No, that's not the signature one. I'll find that later, but here's the important thing. He did design those characters. That's really the most important lesson I'm trying to teach on that, is because some people see things that are different and don't want that. They want what they know, but you never really know what your favorite thing is until you try new things. It's not so new though, all the way through Zexal and continuing on into some of the concept work on Arc 5 and Brains as well. He was instrumental in character designs. He was instrumental in the direction of those series, ideas, and continued stories for those characters. And so it's just really important to try those new things and absorb something, because then you will discover more Yu-Gi-Oh! In the same way that you discovered this franchise, no matter how strange those lightning bolt hair cuts seemed to you at the beginning, right? Yu-Gi-Oh! Is known for its weird hair, I know, with my collection of wigs around the room. It is really important to go through. Going through, yeah, Solid Vision being inspired by Star Wars holograms, absolutely. The notes in the manga, that's a lot of the things we've been pulling for sure. Later series had great art, yeah. Oh yeah, dinosaurs appear, Tyranno Kenzan. Weeb Thrash, you're not who I think you are you? Tyranno Kenzan, huh? But it is true that there's so much, and yes, Bo, that's an interesting comic panel that I think is worth doing. It's just open your heart to more Yu-Gi-Oh! That's the best way I can say it without trying to get too... Alright, let me see if we can find the Bo. There's a lot of interesting Yu-Gi-Oh! Cards throughout the Yu-Gi-Oh! franchise, specifically the Bo. Let me see. So if you don't know, Bo is a very comedic manga, and anime as well. But there is a panel in which, in the same way we know about all these cool art trades that Takahashi-san has done, there is a panel in which, well, you know what? I don't think I could describe this. I don't think you would believe me. Where literally, Slifer the Sky Dragon is summoned out of the titler character. Bo. And it's just so important to know how open to new ideas and how all of that was, because that's really the legacy, is connecting people and not giving up yet, and relying on what it is that you've learned and applying that to the circumstances at hand, and knowing that even if you lose, your journey isn't over. There's a million life lessons. I mean, we could give sermons every week on the importance of Yu-Gi-Oh! And to a degree, I'm sure it feels like one. It might be what we need right now. And it's just one of those things where I just want to just express as deftly as I can that you're not alone, and you never will be. Just saying. But still, just catching through everything. It's one of those things that there's so much. And so I want to talk a little bit about what the next couple of days might look like, and how you might consider the feelings and reactions of others. Because again, like I've been saying for, well, about an hour or so now, there's really no one right way to do it. So here's what's up. First off, everybody deals with loss in different ways, and some people may not be as comfortable with expressing it as you are. You don't necessarily want to force them, but you can certainly tell people in an open-ended way that you're there for them. Great way to do that might be making a Facebook post so that your mutuals, or Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, etc., know that you're there for them in this trying time. That's the first thing that you can do without invading the space of others. Use your space, the way we're using this space, to communicate with others and just be there for them, the same way they would any loss. The second thing is, don't become the next Seto Kaiba. And when I say that, don't take your perspective and force it on others and say that your way is right and their way is wrong because, well, if you like Yu-Gi-Oh! And you've read Yu-Gi-Oh!, you know that that's not the lesson of the story, right? And even Seto Kaiba might have taken the entirety of the series and a movie or two. Even he found his way too, right? To respect and dignity, and that's a long journey, and it's not a quick one for anybody, right? We met Seto Kaiba in 1996, and it may not have been until 2016 that he started to show signs of respect and dignity to others besides dear old brother, right? So that's your second thing. Don't take your love for something and turn it into someone else's pain or uncomfortability or whatever it is, okay? And then the other thing is, if it still hurts tomorrow, that's okay. If it still hurts a year from now, that's okay too. If you see others and they're having a good day, that doesn't mean that it doesn't hurt for them. So 3 is almost a second of 2. Everyone is going to heal at their own pace, right? And so my solemn vow, I mean, it's nothing new, right? But it's to continue to keep this space up in every meaningful way that I can, to give you guys an opportunity to see, at least by example, that there are other people out there like you who feel the things that you feel, who believe in the things that you believe, and are in the spaces that you're in, or in other spaces, and are proud of where they're from, right? And I was never shy about the impact of this game throughout my collegiate career, throughout my law career, throughout my professional career. I never was shy. And I'm not saying that that's right for you, but what I'm saying is that didn't stop me from being what conventionally people would say, you know, that guy did good for what that guy was doing. And so you can be you. You can be you, Gio, right? You don't have to change who you are at all. And you can successfully learn to navigate those spaces. You can still grow. I'm not saying that you shouldn't reevaluate who you are, right? It's hard to see yourself in a mirror, but you can see others and how others might respond to you by and through your actions and your deeds. So my actions and deeds are going to be to keep making the art that I do, to keep streaming. And, well, I mean, we didn't do the last 25 years for nothing, so we're going to do the next 25 years for quite some time. Before we wrap things up, I want to take just a little bit more time for sure to go through everything. Let's take a look. Open Your Heart is a great song. It really, really, really is. And I'm sorry, B, and I am, but remember that Seto Kaiba did find himself at the end of his journey, and there were a lot of steps along the way that weren't fun, but people do respect his impact on the world. When you think about Seto Kaiba, right? Think about the character. He came from weapons manufacturing. Actually, he came from nothing. He was inducted into weapons manufacturing, and he decided, no, games are what motivate humanity to do better. Games are how humanity evolves. And it really is. A game is something effectively that, while it doesn't count because we're not using the game to determine, you know, if someone will live or die, if property will change hands. A game can be a meaningful way, if you care about it, to test out different approaches to life and to see who it is that you are and to show other people who you are. So keep that in mind. You can really do a whole lot there. And Duel Academy is another example, and technically in the canon, Duel Academy did happen after Dark Sides of Dimension, so there's some stuff to that. But taking a quick look here. I did see that. I've seen that in a lot of places. I've got Yu-Gi-Oh! Content as mine, but there's a lot of different ways to express yourself for sure. And, you know, there's This is not a conversation, by the way, that has to stop today when I go to stream. The next time we stream and we're just playing Master Duel and stuff like that, you don't have to be shy about it. I'm never not going to understand. It's not going to be one of those things like, no guys, that was last week, this is this week. No, it's not how loss works. So that's the solemn vow that I have, is just really to keep on keeping on. And you already heard my 3 asks, right? Everybody heals differently. Don't be a bully. And, well, if people look like they're doing all right, it may not mean that they are, but that's not wrong. Everybody heals differently. So repeat it 1 and 2. With that in mind, I am gonna call it a night for a night to engage in, you know, some personal mourning with, you know, members of my family who understand what it is that what's going on. And I hope you do too. You should check in on the people that you know really care about Yu-Gi-Oh! And think about it every day to see how they're handling this, because this is something that they may not have experienced. This is the first day any Yu-Gi-Oh! Fan ever has had to deal with the loss of Kazuki Takahashi. It was a day that we didn't prepare for, right? There's the old saying from the beginning of Pyramid of Light, right? It was never supposed to happen, and for 25 years, it didn't. But this is where we're at now, and I would recommend Dark Side of Dimensions as a good way to sort of, you know, feel out what Yugi did when Yugi lost somebody in his life, and what it meant to him, and how he carried on that legacy. Because, hey, King of Games, could be wrong, right? With that in mind, I always mean it. I really do. And I mean it this time. We will be back on Monday for our usual programming, and we do have a lot of exciting things to look forward to, and we are going to use those exciting things to feel joy so that we can use that joy to interface with our feelings of loss, right? So with that in mind, I hope you are safe. I hope you are well. I hope you find your feelings for this moment. With that in mind, thank you for watching. I'll see you guys real soon. Take care.